Is Tanner Molendyk a Mario Ferraro clone, or does he have an offensive upside that we just haven't seen from Mario Ferraro? Keegan from San Jose Hockey Now joins to profile the Saskatoon Blades blue liner.
You're Locked On Sharks, your daily podcast on the San Jose Sharks. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, welcome to Locked On Sharks, the premier hockey podcast of your favorite team in the Bay Area. My name is JD Young, contributor at San Jose Hockey Now, and I want to thank you for making Locked On Sharks your first listen, proudly a part of the Locked On Network, where we cover your team every day. If you want to be an everydayer, all you gotta do, just come back tomorrow. Check out Locked On Sharks wherever you get podcasts, or you can watch this on YouTube as well. Keegan from San Jose Hockey Now makes his return to the podcast. We talk about Tanner Molendyk, the Saskatoon Blades defenseman, and why he kind of looks like a Mario Ferraro type of clone, but there might be a little bit more offensive upside there than what we've seen from Mario Ferraro. So we discuss what Tanner Molendyk, what kind of makes him intriguing, his ups, his downs, and where he would fit in the Sharks prospect pool. And then we talk about Corey Pronman's mock draft and kind of the picks for the Sharks and what we kind of feel about that going forward. So before we get into today's episode, do want to let you know that it is brought to you guys by Birddogs. Go to birddogs.com/lockedonnhl and enter the promo code LOCKEDONNHL. We'll throw in a free custom Birddogs Yeti style tumbler with every order. And now we bring in Keegan, a.k.a. Half Wall Hockey of San Jose Hockey Now. Buddy, how's it going?
Good. How are you, man?
Doing well.
Just a little bit.
Yeah. You sporting the very sweet Coyotes jersey today. Too bad they're going to be in Salt Lake City in like 3 years.
Now listen, Gary Bettman
is very patient.
He's very patient. We're going to do whatever it takes to keep hockey in the desert. I've been saying that since I got this jersey, probably in 2004. So if that gives you any indication, they might be there for another 20 years.
They might be there for another 20 years as they just wander like Moses wandering the desert right now, trying to find a home for the next 20 years in Arizona. So one person who won't have to wander very far in the draft room, or at least we hope, will be one Tanner Molendyk. So Tanner Molendyk, if you are unaware of him, is a 5'11", 176-pound defenseman who plays for the Saskatoon Blades, a.k.a. Tristan Robbins' old team. He is a left-handed defenseman. We know the Sharks have, I think, 1,000 left-handed defensive prospects.
Yep.
Last season for the Blades, he has 67 games, 9 goals, 28 assists on 141 shots on goal. And then he added another 8 points in 18 playoff games for the Blades. So Keegan, as we typically do, what makes Tanner Molendyk such an intriguing prospect?
Ooh, intriguing. I think I love that word that you keep using for every single one. I think Molendyk is a good example of a specific trait that's so intriguing, because Molendyk is probably the best skating defenseman in the draft, or if not, at least top 2 or 3. You can argue maybe Simishev, maybe Gulyayev. But for my money, Molendyk, his combination of his defensive IQ and his skating is what really makes him the most intriguing prospect in the draft.
So you talk about his skating and why it's so good. I mean, we know the Blades, very good team, went very far in the playoffs this year. You didn't really see the production, though, you would kind of expect for a potential, first round, end of the first round, beginning. You look at a guy like Dragicevic, who we talked about, was over like basically a point per game. Granted, he had 100 more shots. You look at some of these other defensemen kind of in this range who point production is much higher. Do you care about the points, or are you just like, this guy's good?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I don't really care about Tanner Molendyk's points. And I think that's a very similar argument that people make with Dmitry Simishev, is they don't really care about his points. And Dmitry Simishev has the advantages of being a little bit taller, a little bit more of a pro style body and frame and everything than Molendyk is. He's a tiny bit shorter. He's 5'11", but Molendyk just is so good at defending off the rush that if you put Molendyk in those specific scenarios in like a pro system right now, I think he could do okay. And that is really impressive. It's not just like his skating is taking him far offensively. And I think that's honestly one of the areas that needs to improve is using his skating to impact play offensively. But defensively is where he excels with it. He's really, really great at four-way mobility, really, really great at having his stick out in lanes and being able to cover a huge amount of ice just by the way that he moves. A lot of times you'll see junior defenders or defenders when they're trying to poke check, when they're trying to put their sticks out, they stop skating. They just kind of like stand still and wait for the play to come at them.
That's moving. Just me and Chell too. I just stand there and wait.
You just like sit there, you press the button, and you
do the swing, and you hope. Yeah,
it's obviously that happens a lot in juniors too. But Molendyk is moving when that happens, so he's pressing out forward. He's like pushing backwards with his body to cover ground while he's like matching speed with attackers, and he does that on every play, every shift, and it's really, really impressive what he can do by affecting play defensively. So we could start there because I think that's the one part of his game that's definitely going to probably take him to the NHL level.
Yeah. So it sounds like he is already where or at least on track to being where he needs to be defensively, right? And that's usually what you don't see, like you kind of said, especially for junior players and defensemen, where it's the offensive side of the game, and then they're trying to work on the defensive side of the game and make that kind of pro ready. With his offense, I mean, granted, you know me, I'm very much defenses for nerds, score points, score offense. What can he do with the offensive zone, or is he a negative in that area, or is it just he hasn't really had a chance to kind of show what he can do yet?
I mean, like you said, they're pretty deep team in general, so he wasn't always getting every single offensive minute. He wasn't getting every single time first power play minutes either. So I think there's a little bit of that. He just doesn't have the opportunities that Dragicevic had or a bunch of other defenders where they're, playing every single minute in the offensive zone, no matter what. That's part of it. I think he occasionally will show off that he's able to use his feet to go through, 5 guys, enter the zone, that kind of thing. But it's really that next step of what do you do when you get into the zone that I think he has some issues with. And it's not issues. It's just he needs to mature the way that he thinks about what to do with the puck, because he's great at getting it back. He's great at defending the rush, and he's great at getting up ice. And then sometimes he'll just kind of throw it away, or he'll lob a shot on net where he should have held it a little bit longer or skated into the corner and created another opportunity for his teammate. There's some issues with his pass accuracy as well. I think he hits people's skates or people in their skates a little too often for my liking, that I think we'll clean up with time. But it's really just he needs to transition from just I'm really, really good at skating, getting into the zone and doing something with it when he gets there.
Kind of building that next level with it, right?
Yeah. That last part also is that his shot is not amazing. He has some decent speed on his shot, but it's nothing very special, and it's not going to translate extremely well unless he improves it, basically. But this is all sound like negative things. There's still a lot more positives, I promise.
All right, before we continue with Keegan, we look at where Molendyk would kind of fit in the Sharks prospect pool and why he might be the best one, him or Muka Madulan. You can kind of make the argument for between the two. We do need to take a quick break, talk to you guys about our new friends over at Birddogs. And Birddogs have become a staple in my weekend attire. If you're like me, usually the weekends are pretty busy. You're running around. Maybe you got kids soccer in the morning. Maybe you're running errands. Maybe you're at the brewery. Maybe you're at the pool. Maybe you're doing a bunch of things. Birddogs has the comfort and versatility that you need, especially into these hot summer months. The great thing about it, they just fit so nice. They stretch shorts, but they look kind of like khakis, so you can kind of wear them out wherever, and you're not going to be kind of like that guy who has the weird shorts. They don't restrict you. You have plenty of breathing room for everything in there. So go check them out. Like I said, they're going to cover whatever you need for your summer months. If you like shorts with a little bit longer inseam, they got you covered there. If you like to show off the legs a little bit, Birddogs has got you covered there. So head to birddogs.com/LockedOnAHL. Enter the promo code LockedOnAHL for a free Yeti-style tumbler with your order. That's birddog.com/LockedOnAHL for a free Yeti-style tumbler. You don't want to take your Birddogs off. We promise you. All right. So what are some of the more of those positives? So I know we kind of harped on what he needs to improve on. So what do you think? I mean, we know you said his defensive skills. It sounds like his ability to kind of think the game, especially defensively, right? Where you said he's not like he can do two things. He can walk and chew gum. It's not like he can do, he can only do one thing at a time. Is
for sure.
Is he going to be one of those like high IQ, I'm never going to be out of position kind of defenseman, you think?
Yeah, that's a really good thing. And I was thinking about this when we talked about doing this episode is what are his paths? Like what are the ways that he's going to improve his game to get where he goes? Because I think the comparable that's used for him most frequently is Mario Ferraro, a very noted shark that we all know of. Because Ferraro is a good skating defenseman. He's left-handed. He's very similar size to Molendyk. He's competitive. He works hard constantly. And he's always active in the defensive zone. He's trying to get the puck back and he's defending the rush and all the things that we loved Ferraro for when he first came into the NHL. We were like, oh my gosh, he stepped out of college and he's right in the NHL kind of thing. Yep. Now we're all kind of questioning where's the next step. And I think that there is definitely a path where the same thing happens with Molendyk, where he could, play a couple more years in juniors, come into the NHL, and you say, oh my gosh, this guy can defend the rush. He can skate. He can pass out. He can do a breakout pass. He does all the things that I want my top four defensemen to do. And then you need that extra level. You need that, not just I'm really good at defending the rush, but I'm really good at breaking up a cycle. I'm really good at retrieving the puck. I'm really good at bossing people around in the defensive zone. And I'm really good at getting that puck to the forwards kind of thing. It's like that next bit that Ferraro's kind of missing, and Molendyk could be missing in the future if he doesn't develop.
So yeah, I mean, Ferraro I've talked about before, just how he's plateaued, right? Where again, what has he added to his game as he's become, you're 4 now of Mario Ferraro. God, it's already year 4. But we're gonna. I think what does Ferraro do? How does Ferraro kind of take that next step? And that's kind of your worry with Molendyk? Is he? Well, I mean, still having a Mario Ferraro on your team, everybody wants 100%. A Mario Ferraro on your team, maybe at not $3.25 million for the next 3 years, but you still want a Mario Ferraro on your team. Everybody wants one, right?
You want a Mario Ferraro on your team, but every single Stanley Cup team wants a Jacob Slavin on their team. That's what they want. It's the next step, the top pairing defenseman that is solid as a rock defensively. He's not a liability in the offensive zone, and he can make breakout plays to the high skill forwards easily. So that's what you hope is the future progression of someone like Molendyk, is that he uses his amazing skating to really progress the other areas of his game forward.
Okay, so we know Molendyk is kind of in that back end, beginning of the second round type of projection, and the Sharks have 2 picks there, of course. If the Sharks do draft him and he's the first defenseman off the board for the Sharks, whatever, if it's pick 26 or pick 36, whatever it is, where do you kind of see him fitting in with the other Sharks defensive prospects? I guess Mikko Medulin is probably number 1 right now, at least among the blue liners. You have guys like Gannon Laroque, who I know missed a lot of last season. They've added some other guys like Furlong last season and Havlin. Where would you kind of put him in this, kind of revamped blue line pipeline?
I think just based off of the way that he plays, he would be kind of this like a tie-ish with Mukka for, I think, the best defensive prospect, because there's so much raw ability there that there's definitely a path for him to improve. And if he takes a next step offensively when he goes back to juniors in Saskatoon next year, then it's very clear that I think he would be the best Sharks prospect for the defensive side, I think. But he does need to improve in that area that could hold him back into that kind of second tier behind Mikko Medulin. And also, depending on what Mikko Medulin does next year on North American ice and everything. So
yeah,
right around that area.
I think you're slightly more excited about Mukaba Dolan than me.
Yeah.
But I mean, we definitely
a lot of good qualities, and I think it starts with him being very tall.
He is very tall, and last I taught, you can't teach height, you can't teach speed. So those are the two things apparently you cannot teach. But I think with a guy like Molendyk, right? You actually even look at like Gan Larocque. Larocque kind of picked in that 4th round. We were like, who's this dude? Then the next season, he really kind of grew offensively. You look at, just kind of a quick look at the Blades roster. Their top scoring defenseman, I'm going to butcher his name, Adrien De La. He's a 21. He's not going to be on the team next year, right? Charlie Wright, who's kind of their second scorer, he's going to be 20 by the time the season starts. So you look at a guy like Molendyk, who might have the opportunity this year of that D+1 year of just like exploding offensively. And then almost like we talked about with Bo, I talked about Bo Akey a couple weeks ago, where when you have a guy kind of in front of you taking, especially a guy who's 20, 21, kind of taking all those first opportunities. And then when they're gone, it gives you your chance to shine. And if he's already got his defensive game kind of, worked out, and then is able to add an more offensive skill and more kind of production, that's where you can kind of start to really feel good about Molendyk as almost like a sleeper type of situation, right?
Yeah, I think it's that increased opportunity, that increased ice time, and a little bit more confidence with knowing how he can really affect play with his skating. He's going to probably take him for next year. There's still obviously like the issues we talked about with his shooting and some of his decision making offensively. But just even still, like the way that he's providing value for Saskatoon every shift is impressive. And I won't say that his defensive game is very, very great, especially off the rush. But there is still some issues with defending the cycle, and also how he gets a little too aggressive. Like he knows he's such a good skater defensively that he will like attack straight onto a guy and get it out of position that he really shouldn't, because he knows he can double back if the guy passes through him, kind of thing. Like he's just really aggressive.
That's fine.
And sometimes it serves him well, sometimes it doesn't. Which is the exact opposite of somebody like Dragicevic, where he's super passive defensively. He will wait for plays to happen around him and just kind of try to get in the way. And Molendyk's like, no, this is not happening. This is my zone. It's not going down this way, kind of thing.
If you combine them, you'd either have the worst defenseman ever or the best defenseman ever.
yeah, absolutely. It would be the most awful, like a horrible shot with no defense and
with passive defense
person ever.
Yeah, or the best defenseman ever. So
Nick Lidstrom.
Nick Lidstrom 2.0, the Western Canadian version of Nick Lidstrom. So before we kind of get to some of the bigger stuff, so what do you kind of see his ceiling, everything works out, where do you kind of see him landing for a team as kind of that second pair defenseman who plays maybe a lot more kind of shutdown minutes and then can provide some offense type of situation?
Yeah, I think that's also the reason why I'm pretty sure he's going to get picked in the first round, even though he's not the tallest. And I mean, he's like 5'11", almost 6 feet. And again, his production isn't great. I'm pretty sure he's going to be a first rounder. I think he has such a floor with his already like above average to like higher end skating that a team is going to fall for it and say, yeah, we need a defenseman like this in our system no matter what. And I think that's why he'll get picked there. And I think that's a great floor for him, is somewhere in the middle pairing. Somebody that hopefully will round out the rest of his defensive game. And then if you're really, really lucky, really develops an offensive game that takes him very far.
Yeah, I mean, the compete thing sounds very Mike Grier. Compete guy who can skate sounds very Mike Grier.
It might be the Mike Grier pick.
It might be the Mike Grier pick. So, all right, before we finish up with Keegan, we talk about Corey Pronman's latest mock draft and kind of how we feel about his picks and maybe what we would kind of lean or try to do with those picks. Do need to take a quick break, talk to you guys about our friends over at FanDuel. Right now, you can make a fast break to FanDuel during the NBA playoffs because right now, new customers get a no-sweat first bet up to $2,500. That's $2,500 back in bonus bets if your first bet doesn't win. The great thing about their app is it's safe and secure. They have amazing promotions running every day, and you get paid instantly, right? You don't have to wait for your winnings to show up. There's no better place to bet on all the playoff action than America's #1 sportsbook. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and get a no sweat first bet up to $2,500. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, before we get out here, we want to touch on Corey Pronman's latest mock draft. So he released a mock draft last week. It's on The Athletic. You should subscribe to The Athletic. Corey does amazing work on The Athletic, the Sharks beat writer. But they also have a bunch of other cool stuff on there. We don't want to give away too much because, again, it's a paid site. But on that, though, he does have the Sharks picking number 4, Will Smith, the center from the USN TDP program. And we'll start there because he has, of course, Bedard going 1, Fantilli going 2, Leo Carlsson going 3, especially after the way he played in Worlds. Will Smith going there. And I know it's been, at least in Sharks Twitter and Sharks discussion, it's Carlson, Michkov, or if you don't take Michkov, you're an idiot type of situation. How would you feel about Will Smith? I mean, it's not like they're picking some bum. Will Smith is a really good player. Yeah.
No, I think, and there's there's a specific quote in there, and in the mock draft that kind of has set the Twitter world on fire. Because Shang put out a thing that said, "Oh, do they have Reinbacher ahead of Michkov?" kind of thing. And that's coming from this article where Pronman was basically saying, I could see Smith, Reinbacher, or Michkov as the pick in that likelihood. So basically, the most likely is Smith, Reinbacher ahead of Michkov. I think in my heart of hearts, pretty much know it's probably going to be Will Smith. It just feels so right. And the way that Mike Grier talks about Will Smith, it's like somebody talking about their neighbor's kid. He's like, I love this kid. I've seen him since he was 10. But and then he talks about Michkov. He's like, he's a high skill forward that we'll have to consider all the options. It feels more like a Mike Grier pick. That being said, I like Will Smith. I think he's an excellent player. I think I have him 5th on my draft ranking. He's grown throughout the year, really taking over games. And granted, his competition is lower than someone like Michkov, but he does take over games. He's just so skilled, and he's so good at passing through defenders and waiting for plays to develop. Somebody was basically saying that he doesn't just see a play and see a pass. He sees his deke, which will then allow somebody to be open, and then he will make that pass kind of thing. He's 2-3 steps ahead in the offensive zone. There's lots of issues with him defensively that need to be cleaned up while he's in college, but he's still an exciting pick if we do pick Will Smith. Yeah,
Reinbacher, that's the one, right? I mean, we're both kind of on the same. We were talking beforehand where Reinbacher is an exciting defensive prospect, but it feels very rich. I think the draft value, picking him at 4, feels very rich, right? Yep. And if you were at 9 or 10, cool, knock yourself out. But especially in this year's draft where it is so all the forwards it's so heavy, and I just do not want to reach for the best defenseman in the class, especially at number 4. Sharks could be picking 4 again next year, but I mean, we saw a team like Arizona, right, who was kind of in that 1-2-3 spot, and then by the end of the year, they're picking at 6, right? You never know when you're going to be up this high again, and I don't think either one of us thinks the Sharks are going to be incredibly good next year, but I don't think they're going to be a top 5 worst team in the NHL again next year, especially if they. Some of those overtime losses become overtime wins. Year 2 under David Quinn, you're going to have Eklund. There's reasons to believe that the team might be a little bit better than what we saw.
If they trade Carlson, absolutely.
If they trade Carlson, that's a whole different conversation. And there's going to be regression from Carlson. That's a 100% a fact. How sweet would it be if Carlson scored 100 points for 2 years in a row? But no,
no, but I do think Reinbacher is a little bit, like you're saying, like a little rich. I think he is my number one defenseman in the draft, but I like Reinbacher a lot, and when I watch him, I understand that he's going to play in the NHL. Like you watch him, you know, but it doesn't feel like he's as high value as someone like Will Smith, Matthew Michkov, definitely not Leo Carlson, Adam Fantilli, or Bedard, who are going to probably go top 3. So hopefully that's just kind of like Pronman, not baiting for clicks, but kind of feeding the fire a little bit of doubt, like this whole Michkov pick is the story of the draft, I think. Yeah. And when we're there, or when we're watching the draft, like that's what people are going to be watching for, is where Michkov goes. So, the next month is going to be a lot of stories about where Michkov's going to go.
Yeah. And I mean, that's also part you have to also remember too, is just the draft cycle. Things are cyclical. I mean, a couple of weeks ago was, hey, is Adam Fantilli that great? And then he just goes out and destroys in the the NCAA tournament. Like it's very cyclical of like guys rise and fall, et cetera, et cetera. Even the Will Smith, Leo Carlson, right? Will Smith was a lot of people, hey, Will Smith.
3 overall, right?
Yeah, 3 overall, great U18s. And then now after the Worlds, where Leo Carlson is playing with men and had himself a great tournament as well. And it's like, okay, we're idiots. Leo Carlson's probably going to be 3rd overall in this this draft because Leo Carlson's really awesome type of thing. Not that Will Smith's not a great player, but it's just every time there's any little bit of new information, we have to try to kind of, and that's the dangers of too with the draft is also what are the GMs feeding to the media? What are the GMs not feeding? What is type of situation? And I think that's the fun of it right now is the next couple of weeks. So before we go ahead. Sorry.
Basically, I think there's always the adage like you don't take the player that you like, the skill or the position that you need. You take basically the best player available kind of thing.
Yes.
But there is a lot of, and the reason why they might not pick Michkov is that the Sharks have just taken so many undersized skill wingers in the past 3 drafts that like it feels like we have one too many, and not like all of them are going to make the NHL. I'm sure only maybe a handful or a couple, maybe 1 or 2. But we just have so many, and I feel like the team needs a center. They know it. We know it. Couture and Hurdle are getting older. I feel like it's going to be Will Smith, or Leo Carlson if Columbus also decides to lunge it with Will Smith instead. Which either one, I'm happy with.
Yeah, I mean, again, as long as it's one of these 3 players, I'll be super happy with the Sharks, right? I mean, yes, we have our personal preferences, and I think ask me today, I think I'm slightly Carlson. Ask me tomorrow, I'll be slightly Michkov type of thing. But again, whoever they pick, you're gonna be really happy with. So let's talk about his pick at 26, which was Michael Ferraro, the goalie. How would you feel if the Sharks picked a goalie at 26? Some of the guys left on his draft. So right afterwards was Carson Rickoff, Eaton Morin, you had Oliver Bonk, Gavin Brindley, Tanner Molendyk, Danny Nelson, some of the available players there, right? At least the next couple picks. How would you feel about picking a goalie at 26?
I'd be totally cool with picking Robble above Carson Rickoff, Oliver Bonk, and Danny Nelson. But I think there's just so much more value there at 26 that is being left off the board. And Michael Robble is a great goaltender, but this draft is kind of like, to use an old Locked On Sharks quote, the creamy middle of goalies. Like there's a lot of good goalies. There's not one specific goalie, and it's the same. It's the Reinbacher effect, but in goaltenders, where you pick one guy that's the most archetypical. Is that a word? Archetypical NHL goaltender.
Yeah.
Anyway,
whatever.
And we're like, that's the guy. We got to choose him high. And I don't think that's what the Sharks should do. I think they do need to draft a goaltender, but they have 12 picks this year. It doesn't have to be in the first 3. The first 3 should be reserved for, these top of the top 35 players that really, really are going to affect your team in the future. Because there's definitely a world where Michael Robble never touches the NHL. Yep. And there's a world where he's Vasilevsky. So I think it's too much of a risk to take at 26. I'd take a goalie at 94 or 96. I don't remember what the number is that they have.
96, yeah.
Yeah. I'd take one there. There's going to be somebody who falls through out of the top 5 or 6, like your Jacob Fowlers, your Trey Augustines, your Damian Claras. All one of these guys will fall. And I think that's the slot that you take one. And then you go for it. Maybe one later on too. Although it's very rare to draft 2 goalies.
I mean, yeah, I would even, again, they have 12 picks. Why don't you package up 96 and whatever else? And if you need to move up a couple, 10, 15 spots in the 3rd round,
78.
Yeah. You've got 3 7th rounders. You got 2. Yeah. You have like 2 5th rounders, 2 4th round. Like just package up some of those. If especially like a Trey Augustine or somebody like that is there kind of, middle of the 3rd round. I think that's trading up is, again, it's not usually the best, but I think, again, when you have 12 picks and you need a goalie and there's a potential of getting one in the middle of the 3rd round, I think that's the route to go. And I totally agree with you. I think I know the Sharks do need a goaltender in the future, and you should continue to take, it's the quarterback thing, right? You keep taking swings at one until you find one. But again, it's too rich. And I think because he's the best one this draft, and same thing with the linebacker, right? They're just getting pushed up probably a little bit higher than they need to be going. And, he's probably 2nd round pick. Cool. But again, I'd rather use that pick to try to find another impact player, whether it's a defenseman or a forward. Try to find another impact player for the Sharks. And
there will be a faller. There's somebody that's come into the day 2 that you're like, how is Riley Heidt still available? How is Andrew Crystal still available? How are these super skilled guys that should be 1st rounders by their skill and their production alone, but because of size concerns or skating concerns or whatever, they're gonna fall. One of those guys could be your pick at 36. That I think that it would be unwise to just one of those first 3 picks to use a goaltender on.
Yep. All right. Before we get you out of here, so again, last time we asked who's going to be the best player, and I think you said Fantilli or Michkov. Which player that gets picked at the end of the 1st, beginning of the 2nd, are we looking 5 years from now? Like, how did that guy go here? Who's your guy?
Oh man. Hold on, I'm pulling up draft rank. This is mine. You're saying like back end of the 1st round?
Yeah, guy who gets picked in the back end, and then we're like, how did this guy go this late?
I'd say someone like Quentin Musty, but he might go a little bit higher, but he just has such a high skill level that there's a very real possibility that later on it looks really dumb because he's like a point per game forward. He's really good. There's a lot of concerns with his compete level and his physicality for a bigger guy. It's not great, but he's very, very skilled, and he might go a little bit later just because of he's a big guy but plays like a small guy kind of thing.
The Brandon Coe.
The Brandon Coe effect. That's a really good way to put it.
All right.
And then also Dragicevic, because he's my guy.
He's very good. I think you and I are both on the pick about 26 train, so that's where if he's there. All right. Where does Tanner Molendyk go in the draft?
I'm gonna say just right at the end there. Pronman is probably right on. I think he had him at 31. I'm gonna say 30. Whoever has pick 30.
Carolina, which means he'll definitely work out. So
100%. He's going to be Jacob Slavin for the next decade, and we are screwed again.
Yep. Keegan, where can the people find you?
So again, with the really poor branding, I am at half-wallhockey.com. So it's like half with a little dash. I'm going to be putting out a top 100 with some honorable mentions at the end, probably in the next week or two.
Do I make the cut? That's the big question.
Yeah, JD Young is actually number 17.
38-year-old center.
Decent skating. There's some I don't know. There's a little bit of concerns over the physicality, and
I do have the weight though. I mean, I don't have the size, but I have the weight that the players
definitely knock him around. Yeah.
The GMs are looking for. So yeah.
But yeah, half-wall hockey. I'll have a top 100 out before the draft. And then also at San Jose Hockey Now, where I am writing about different Sharks prospects as frequently as I can. And there might or might not be a special thing happening with San Jose Hockey Now and me soon. So that's it. That's the only teaser I'll give you.
I know. Keegan, thank you so much, buddy. And I'll see you here in a couple weeks, buddy.
Yeah, we go to the draft.
Yes.
Boom.
All right, guys, hope you enjoyed my conversation with Keegan. Molendyk feels very, if all the other defensemen are gone, type of pick, which means Mike Grier will probably pick him. I worry about the offensive upside with him, and I've famously defenses for nerds type of player, a person, but Molendyk, I worry about the limited upside. Maybe next year when he kind of gets more opportunities, you see about the offensive production. But that's the one thing that worries me. Defensively, he sounds great. But again, the offensive upside right now just kind of really worries me. And I know as the Sharks are trying to rebuild this blue line, I would rather go somewhere else. So we'll see what the Sharks do. But want to thank you guys for making Locked On Sharks your first listen. Be back tomorrow where we talk about a very fun, intriguing player in Gavin Brindley. So Austin Garrett from Smart Scouting joins, and we talk about Brindley and what makes him such a fun prospect. So 3 prospects this week, and we'll probably be doing 3 more prospect profiles next week as we're getting closer and closer to the draft. So make sure you guys are keeping it locked in at Locked On Sharks, wherever you get your podcast, and of course on YouTube as well. You can follow the show on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Locked On Sharks. You can follow me on Twitter at MyFryhole. And until tomorrow, bye, friends.